everybody. Welcome. My name is Via Williams, and I'm with Ben Kinney Training. Ben Kinney Companies, Place, you name it. I have a lot of titles, a lot of companies I work with. Oh my goodness. It is Wednesday at noon, which means we are doing our weekly agent training webinar. And for those of you who are joining us new, two things I'm going to share with you, then we're going to jump right in hot with our topic today. Number one, these are completely free, open to anyone from any brokerage, right? And the goal of these is to train our amazing agent community in how to just have a great business, right? My goal at the end of these is that you have between 1 and 3 things you can just walk away with and use right after this webinar is over. So that's my goal on these. The second thing is that I have been on like a little bit of a soapbox this year. I'll admit it. I do admit it, Scott. And my soapbox is that we are really, our velocity of sales of listings in almost every market is so fast right now that a lot of us agents have lost that lead flow that we traditionally got from our listings. And so what's happened is a lot of people's businesses have declined because they haven't replaced the business. So example is you get a listing and in the typical market, you might have 30 days to market that listing. Well, that's 2 or 3 open houses, right? That's a 2 or 3 postcards or direct mails, 2 or 3 weekends, weeks and weeks for people to drive by and call you, to have it sitting out on the internet's interwebs, right? All that stuff. So there's a lead flow that typically comes in from the listing, and we have lost that. Yeah. Because in almost every market, it's selling in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, right? So I started off the year, and we can put the link to that because I almost feel like that's foundational. We started off the year, and I issued a challenge to my fellow agents, and I said, what would it be like if we could all aim for getting 2 pieces of business for every listing that we bring on this year? What would that look like? And I started asking myself the questions that I hope that's making you ask in your head. Well, what would I have to do? Who would I, and I started, what would I have? Do I have to get any, and I started, all of my webinars, funny enough, have been like, what do we have to do that? So we had Frank Klesitz on last week, and he deep dived on how to use the golden letter to get at least 1 piece of business. The week before that, I had Bob Stewart on. It was everything we needed to know about automating your lead follow-up at open houses, right? So I'm continuing that theme with really one of my favorite teams in real estate. And I've got Scott Shuman with us today of the Sue Adler team. And you guys, Scott, you guys have been the #1 team in New Jersey for how long?
Since 2013 now. So we're almost at 10 years. We'll be at 10 years next year.
It's amazing. Almost at 10 years. That says a lot, right? It's one thing to be the top team in a market for 1 year, even 2 years, even 3, any period of time, but almost a decade straight. And so what I love about Scott's the chief operating officer of the Sue Adler team. And I specifically, Sue's one of my best friends, but I actually asked Scott to be on because I want to talk today about the systems behind it and the processes. And Sue has a lot of superpowers, Scott. But this is, I think, your superpower, right? I think we can both agree.
Well, I'm here to share.
Yeah. Okay. So, but really quick, because it's a good story. Will you tell well, not quick, take your time, but will you tell everybody the story of how you started working with Sue? How old were you?
So I started when I was 17 with Sue. I was really fortunate that my senior year of high school, we'd gotten this new business teacher. He came from Wall Street, and he brought this great idea. Let's have a senior internship program. And I wasn't the brightest kid in high school, but he told us that if we did a senior internship, you got out of finals senior year. And I'm like, well, that seems like a really good deal. And I knew I was
future real estate agent right there.
I know. I knew I was passionate about real estate, and it's kind of a weird story, but my parents had relocated from Massachusetts to New Jersey when I was between 6th and 7th grade. And at the time, Sue was relocating from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. And somewhere along the line, my parents and Sue became clients and broker. And my parents became Sue's second real estate transaction in New Jersey. So I was in Sue's car touring houses as a 6th grader. And fast forward a couple years, I don't know, it was probably the advent of Million Dollar Listing and all these cool real estate shows. And I said, this is really cool. I always knew something about myself, which is I never wanted to be behind a desk. I liked people. I liked working with people. I liked being out, and I knew I could create something of my own. I was very fortunate. Gary Keller had written an awesome book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And at the time, Amazon had a great bundle package. So you got that and Shift together for like $20. And I bought it. And so here I was, 16, 17 years old, reading Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And one thing led to another. And my dad said, well, you're into real estate. You should email Sue. Sue's a good real estate agent. I'm sure she has, some things that some questions or some answers that she can answer for you. And I said, great. So I emailed her out a bunch of questions, and she called me right away. And we talked on the phone for about an hour. And her brother was in commercial real estate. She's in residential real estate. So she said, anything real estate, just call me. Well, little did she know, my senior year of high school, I would have the opportunity. So I called her, and I basically said, all right, like, I'm taking you up on your offer. Do you want free labor for 3 months? And of course she said, absolutely. And my first job, I remember it vividly. We were building a new office space in downtown Short Hills, and we were waiting for the fire inspector. And so I had to sit on an upside down 5-gallon paint bucket for like 3 hours and wait for this guy to come and look at sprinklers. And I remember going home, and I remember thinking that was like the coolest thing I had ever done. I thought, wow, I had so much responsibility. Like, they trusted me to sit here and wait for this guy to show up. And, little did I know years later, that was kind of low man on the totem pole work, but I really loved it. And from there, I was really fortunate to have a lot of awesome agents on the team, including Sue, who took me under their wings and taught me, every aspect of the business. And Sue would always say, I went to school in Florida, and Sue would always say, when you graduate, I'm going to hire you. When you graduate, I'm going to hire you. And, sure enough, my junior into senior year, I said, okay, now's the time. I'm going to graduate. And, where does this go from here? And in very Sue fashion, for those of you who know her, she said, all right, well, write me a proposal. What do you want to do? And I said, oh, well, in my head, I'm like, I didn't think this was going to go that way, but okay. So I spent the summer, and there was a really good friend of mine, Bob Corcoran, who's a big real estate coach. And I got together with him, and I said, hey, Bob, I have this opportunity, and who do you know out there who I should be connected with? And this was 2013 time, and the teams were big, but not super big. And so it's kind of this advent of this new role, that rainmakers were a defined role, buyers agents were a defined role, admin was a defined role, but there was this gap. And I met a lot of people called general managers, and I met a couple of people called directors of operations. And I started to say, okay, this is a niche. This is a void that our team needs in order to take ourselves to the next level. So I wrote a proposal that ended up being called Director of Operations. And long story short, Sue and I had talked about it, and she said, great, let's do it. And the story kind of goes on from there. So I've been with Sue now for 12 years. I think my first year we did something like 55 or 60 million. And last year we did about 330 million. So the growth's been really incredible, and certainly opportunities that Sue's created for me and that we've created together have really been incredible. And we grew from probably 6 people when I started, and we're at 36 people now. So it's the growth in 12 years is really, really incredible to look back upon.
Wow, it's such a great story. And, I've known Sue for maybe 10 years or so. And, so I remember when you were going to school in Florida. So whenever that was, it must have been 2013, because I remember that. And I remember you starting, and it's just been so cool to watch you. You're really her right-hand man, And I mean, it's been great.
It's been a really cool journey for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's just a great story. And I think that on a side note, for anybody watching who owns a business, whether it's real estate or not, certainly if you own a real estate team, this is a dream come true story, that you have someone that starts working for you that was a client related to a client, and they stay with you through their career and ultimately become, partners and take over the business most likely. I mean, that's a dream. That's a dream. You're living what a lot of teams would hope for. So that might be another topic to have both of you guys on at the right time too.
We can do it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great. So today, Scott, I kind of want to talk about the different pillars that you guys use.
Sure.
Right. Really focusing on the processes and the systems, because you're, as COO, that's kind of more what you're focused on. Maybe we could start with a baseline. So 2021, to just pick a number, how many listings did you guys bring on?
So we brought on about 155 listings, and we did 138 list sides. So we sold 138 of those.
Okay. And your average price is around $1 million, $1.5 million?
So it's $1,250,000 on the list side. So it's
Got it.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. So just to give everybody a scope, like they know they have credibility. 175 million in listings right there.
Yep.
So what are you guys doing? And let's break it down. We'll spend time on each one. What are you guys doing to get business from those listings? So far, based on just knowing your business and based on our conversations, we're going to talk about mailers. We're going to talk about open houses, digital marketing, and some calls. So kind of 4 pillars, but we can always add more to that if.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start with mailers? Because I think it's interesting. You and I were talking before this. You made a really interesting point, which is you have how many chances to touch people.
Yeah. So we're talking about how, with listings, you really have 3 chances, right? You have when it goes live, you have when it pens, and you have when it sells. And Gene Rivers talks about that a lot in a lot of his classes, right? He talks about his door knocking strategies around it. And when we were looking at our ROI really seriously last year because I think that the topic of this whole event is so brilliant, because we were having this conversation. We have all of these listings, and it used to be that you could count on 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of business from every listing coming in, and that fed the machine, right? Listings leads leverage.
That's right.
It would feed it, and now these things were transacting almost, right? It wasn't a listing. It was like you had a loaf of bread and it got off the shelves, and now there was no loaves of bread, right? And so we were having this problem. We were saying, all right, where are we spending money that we shouldn't be spending money that we can reappropriate to get better results out of, right? And so the first thing we looked at, we were looking at our just listed, just sold postcards. And honestly, what we were finding was that by the time our just listed postcard got printed and mailed, the house had already sold. So it sort of looked, it was just this weird, we felt like, well, what are we announcing? It's already sold. Like even if you got it and you said, I want to buy that house now, what are we doing from it? And we felt like the just sold postcard gave us the branding and really the messaging, right? It gave us the opportunity to say, hey, we sold this house. And so we made a couple tweaks. So what we're starting now is we're doing a pending letter. So we're going to send a letter to everybody within a certain radius, say the nearest 500 homes of every home that we pen, and let them know that we just sold your neighbor's home, and here's kind of, obviously we can't disclose price yet, right? But we can disclose how many showings did we have, right? I mean, we have listings, I'm sure many of you out there have listings that have hundreds of showings in a weekend, right? Well, there's sellers out there, or potential sellers rather, that are going to be blown away that you got 200 sets of feet in that door, right, that weekend, and of that you got 25 offers, right? People are going to be excited about that momentum, and I know Frank talked about it last week, but what does that mean? If 25 people made offers, only one of them was able to buy it, right? Which means, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's 24 people who potentially want your home, right? They were willing to offer on that home. What's them to stop you from offering on this home? Now, of course, there's condition, there's location, there's a lot of other factors at play, right? But at the end of the day, the proof of concept is there. And so we're really bullish on the idea that we can get out there and get in front of people in the moment, right? Because if you think about it, we're a school year driven market. So most of our homes that are pending now aren't closing until June, July, and August, which means that if we just waited for the just solds, we won't be getting them out there until the summertime, which is really, now we're talking about the fall of 2022 market. Well, we want and we need more listings now to feed our machine, right? So
that's right.
The pending letter bridges that gap. It gets it out there. Hey, we had this great success. You should call us to learn more about what we're able to do for these folks and how we can replicate that and do it for you as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing with mail right now for listings.
And I think here's what I think is interesting, Scott. What I think is interesting is you said something, you gave me an aha when you said, we dropped our just listing postcards because we were realizing that by the time they got there, the house had sold. And that coupled with Frank blew me away last week. Frank
Yeah.
made me change everything when he said, no, we don't do an 8x8. Don't do that. You're better off going wide and not as deep. So I'm rethinking everything we're doing too now, which is why we do these. I selfishly, I learn more in these than anyone, I think. But, to your point, I'm hearing that, that you've cut a postcard. So now we're on a just pending. You might be on a second just pending, I'm guessing, maybe down the road if they're pending that long. Do you keep your signs in the yard the whole time?
Oh yeah. Signs stay in the yard the whole time.
So it's interesting. That is fascinating to me. We would never do that in our market.
Yep.
So you go pending for 3, 4, 5 months?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's the way our market works. So traditionally speaking, people are selling now.
I'm blown away by that.
Yeah. We have people now who are capturing the spring market, right? The early spring market. But they have kids in school. So they're saying, listen, I'm going to sell my house today, and we got to figure out a way to get it closed in June or July. And so I make a joke, especially with new agents that join the team. I say, listen, welcome to real estate. Our world is run by 5-year-olds because it really is. It's when kids are in school and out of school is when people want to move. And so hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate are being bought and sold based upon the schedule of school age children. So that's just
and I don't want to bunny trail too much, but I have to ask the question because it's blowing me away. Because in my market, we close fast and then we do rent backs. That's what everybody does here, so that they have the money to go purchase their next home. And so when they're sitting on a pending property that long, how does that affect their purchase there? Yeah,
so we're in a very affluent market, and so honestly a lot of our folks don't need to close in order to buy their next place, or they already own their next place. We have a lot of our market, I would say 75% of it is downsizers. So folks who have lived in these big homes, their kids have graduated, they're empty nesters, and they're getting out of New Jersey. Quite frankly, we're a high tax state, right? So people say, why are we sitting here? And
so they're going to Florida.
They're going to Florida. They're going to the Carolinas. They're going to Arizona, Mexico, all the places everyone seeks out, right? And we do have some leasebacks. Our market is, I would say, not as savvy probably as some of the other markets around the country in terms of leasebacks. A lot of our banks are capping leasebacks at 60 days, and people
for sure. That's the case here too.
Yeah. And so people aren't as creative about getting or working within those parameters, and so it just isn't as. It happens, but not as often as I know. Places like Denver and Washington, it happens all the time, and that's like. That's just what everyone does. They close as soon as possible.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't want to get all bogged down on that, but I'll end it by saying, like, what's shocking to me is if you're gonna sell a house now on an upwardly trending price line and it's gonna pend, why wouldn't you wait till the last minute when it's probably appreciated another 3, 4, 5, 10%? And sell it and close it in 30 days, but never mind. Okay,
it could, here's what I'll say about it is, our market is so low inventory. We have towns that are down year over year, 60% in inventory, right?
Same, yeah.
Inventory is so low that, quite frankly, buyers are just flocking to these listings. So people are getting crazy prices, and sure,
they're doing great. They're doing okay.
But they're doing great. They're not worrying about a couple $1,000.
Well, and the reason I bring it up is I wasn't aware of that. So other markets that are watching this or listening to it in podcast form, I think what's good about that is your cycle is still there. You still have a sign up. Depending on, I guess it's removed from a lot of websites when it goes pending, but you still have some of that left. In a lot of certainly our West Coast coastal markets, literally your sign is up and gone in 25 days sometimes.
Yeah.
And not just that, Scott, like my marketing time, all of our listings go active on a Thursday and we review offers Monday or Tuesday. That's it.
Yep.
One weekend, that's it.
Yeah. We go live Wednesday evening, we go live. And we're multiple offer Tuesday. It's multiple offer Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what that's what we call it too.
Three properties that are doing it. So
okay. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. That was just a little sidetrack, but it was fascinating how all the different markets work. Very different from the Seattle market. So with that said, between you and Frank, let's dive into your mailings. Who are you mailing to?
Sure. So we're always mailing to our target market, right? So we've identified that if I'm going to do a letter and I'm going to spend the time and the effort and the money on a letter, we want to give it to the people who are most likely to receive value from that letter. So we found that's the downsizers. So we're going through, Frank last week talked about how to pull lists and the different technologies to do that. Those are all awesome. We use it with a little bit of a twist. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we know that most likely the people who are going to respond to this letter have been in their homes 10 to 15 years or longer. So we get rid of everybody who's bought their home in the last 10 years because just in my marketplace, they're most likely not moving at the same clip as my downsizers. So, we're using these little tips and tricks to really identify the right people. And I think it's about the messaging. We do a lot of seller workshops, and the seller workshops drive a lot of traffic in. And so the seller workshops, I know this isn't a podcast, we could talk about it for 5 hours. We want to seller workshops, but the long and short.
We're going to have Sue on to just do a whole episode on that. So
she's amazing at it. But the long and short of it is, and you guys will have a treat of listening to Sue talk about it, is we're basically saying, listen, do any of these things sound like a pain point in your life in terms of what's stopping you from moving to your next chapter in life, right? And we know this because we're going on so many listing appointments that we hear the same objection. I don't know where I'd go. I've accumulated 40 years worth of content, right? How am I going to go to the next place? And we're bringing them to the workshop, and that's a great conversion tool for us on the listing side, especially.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you have your own algorithm. I'm going to call it the Adler team algorithm, where you kind of, you cull, you take a radius. Do you have a set amount? Is it 200? Is it 500? Is it 1,000? What do you typically mail to?
It's going to depend. New Jersey's sort of odd. Well, it's not odd, but, we're a Northeast community. So we're not bound by, say, gated communities or something. So you sold something in XYZ community. We're all these townships and boroughs. And within that, you have these sort of defined yet undefined neighborhoods. Some of them matter. So some of them are like if you sold in Wickham Woods, for instance, which is a community in Chatham, the other Wickham Woods people would really care about that. Maybe the Highlands section wouldn't. Others don't really matter. So for instance, we have a house right now that's $3.7 million. We got 5 offers on in Summit. We're going to send that to every high-end Summit seller because that's a universal message for the high-end market there. So
and plus Summit's your core market too, right?
Summit's
one of your.
Yep.
Okay, so you'll spend a little bit more money and mail it to a little bit more people if it strategically makes sense. That makes sense.
And the key here is message matters, right? I think that a lot of agents miss the boat on their just solds because their just solds or their just pendeds are, I just sold this house. Woo! Right? And the market's like, well, yeah, you sold it, but what's the story behind it, right? That's what really matters. And that's what gets people, right? Think about it. If you went to a movie and they just told you the ending, you say, well, that was a lame movie. It's the whole lead up. It's the process of getting there that really gets people hooked in. And so we like to tell our stories, right? So with the postcards, we'll say, we edited them last year to be able to talk about how many offers did we get? What was the list price and what was the sale price, right? How do we put these sort of sexy information in front of the sellers, potential sellers, so they really see like, wow, these people are really doing it at a high level. And then when our team is calling the local database around our listings, right, and they're sharing these success stories, we call them success stories, that's where it really sinks in, right? When we help somebody who's been in their home for 50, we have sellers who've been in their home 50, 60, even 70 years, right? So we're able to help somebody who's been in their home for 40 years. And we tell this other seller about the Smiths. And when we met the Smiths, they were exactly where you were, right? They had 3 kids who had all moved out of the house, and their bedrooms still had their books in them and their old clothing and their guitar and all this stuff, right? And they hadn't updated anything in 20 years and so on and so forth. And when we can tell the story about how we Sue likes to use the word Sherpa, right? And I think that's a great word, meaning kind of guide, right? When we were really their Sherpa, we were able to say, okay, you're at A, and we need to get you to Z. And there's a lot of steps in between, right? And sometimes you go to C and you go back to A. We've all been there with our clients, right? And so when we can show people that we were with somebody for a year, getting their home ready, helping them declutter, helping them paint, helping them stage, helping them, get projects done around the home that they had neglected, getting them a pre-inspection done, right? When we can show them that we're not just here to come in, take pictures and put your house online, we're here to actually help you through the whole process. I mean, that's really where people are like, we want you to come over today. We're a year and a half out and we're going to sell our home. We need you today. You're showing us we need you today to help us get ready and spend our money in the right places so we're maximizing our return on our investment in our own property, right? And I think that's just a story that we as agents don't tell enough to the public.
How do you tell that story on a mailer?
So it's hard on a mailer. It really is hard on the mailer. But what we will do is we'll use testimonials, right? So the best just sold mailer includes something where we got over 10 offers, over $100,000 over asking, and we have a written testimonial from the client, right?
Yeah.
That package together, it just sings because it shows not only did we get them more money, and not only did we do it quickly, and the client, in their own words, is able to share that story with the world, right, with their neighbors. And I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, I agree. Do you tell that story, and is that a sales process story, or is there a marketing, element that do you do videos? Is there a way you tell that story in marketing, or is that only really more of a conversation in a seminar or in a sales process?
Yeah, so I think it's working really hard to capture the written word, right? I still think in our real estate space that the written review is the most universally accepted, right? I mean, Google takes it, Zillow takes it, Realtor.com, wherever you're Yelp, wherever you're collecting reviews, they all kind of take that medium, right? We have done some, we call them like seller success series, where we've interviewed, especially on Zoom, past sellers and talked about the experience of working with the team and going through the process. And that's something that we're working on for this year, is documenting the process at a higher level so that we can show people in video, particularly, like, this is what to expect from us, right? This is our level of service versus agent A, who maybe does just show up and take pictures and put your house on the market. That's really nice.
Right.
But look at this concierge service that us and our team are able to provide to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. That's a really powerful story, and I think it moves sellers to say, we got to give them the opportunity to at least interview, right? We're just asking for at-bats at the end of the day. That's what we want, or more at-bats.
It's really funny you should mention that, because I have always done what the buzz where everyone says, they use that term concierge now, like concierge service. And
Yep.
and I'm like you guys, I think we have similar businesses. I have done that forever. I mean, I've had deals with the contractors that bill and escrow, everything, you name it. Yep. And I realize now that I'm in the role I'm in, and I train a lot of agents now and teach a lot of agents. I realize that is pretty, that has been pretty, there's only a small percentage of us in probably really high end markets that kind of do that. Like, it was so novel to the industry when this whole concierge came out. Right. I was like, isn't everybody doing that? And they were not. So it's interesting, because I'm like, you guys, you don't need, you guys can do this yourself, like your own business. I just did it in my own real estate business, not through any organizations, not through, it's just interesting now that that's all come out. So you're doing a couple different mailers. Are you doing just postcards, just letters? Are you doing both? About how many per listing are you doing?
Yeah, mixture both. I'm a big believer in, just like Frank talked about last week, I love white envelopes with letters in them.
Okay.
Those work. People open them, right? I went to a conference years ago, and the gentleman who created the Nike "Just Do It" slogan was speaking, and I don't know how the topic came up, but he said God gave us 2 armpits for a reason, and everyone's like, where are you going with this? He said, wait, he said, bear with me. He goes, okay, all of you who have a mailbox at the end of your driveway, right? He says, all of you walk down to your mailbox, you grab your mail out, and on your way back, you take all the envelopes and you put them under one armpit, right? And everyone's like, okay. And he goes, and you take all the ads, right? It's usually the colored mail, the magazines, flyers, because those all go under the other armpit, right? And he goes, okay, good. He goes, now bear with me. You walk inside. He goes, I'm going to give you all that you recycle. He goes, so there's a recycling bin there. He goes, you lift up the one armpit, and all the ads and all that all goes in the one box, right? You'll never look at that. He goes, you all have an island in your kitchen, or you all have a box in your house with the mail you're supposed to read, right? He goes, so you lift up that armpit and all that goes in there. And he goes, and you'll open that eventually. And it was a funny kind of story. And it just hit me. I'm like, that's so true. I mean, the postcard, I'm hoping for one quick look, right? I'm hoping for one quick look and to grab someone's attention to give me 10 seconds of them looking at it, right? But if I send them a letter and I make it look like somebody sent them a letter, they're going to open that and they're going to read it, and they may or may not take action on the message. And yet I got the 30-second stop, right? We're all looking to stop the scroll online. We're all looking to stop the scroll in everyone's busy life. Well, what better than a letter? Or we've even done cards. Think about a note card, right? In an envelope that looks like you got a birthday card. Well, who's not going to open that? I mean, maybe someone forgot when your birthday was, right? You got $100 in the mail. I don't know. Everyone's going to open that card. And worst case scenario, they see my logo and they say, oh, them again, right? But I got that look. I got the look. I got the look. So we're all about getting that brand, getting the look, and getting the message read.
Okay, I like it. That's good. That's good. Do you have any? Do you know any numbers from that? Like how many listings you took last year from any type of a mailer? Do you track it that way?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at it this way. So for our seller workshop series, we've been doing it since 2019. We've added 2,200 people to our database through the seller workshop series in 2.5 years. And we've probably sent out somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 80,000 pieces of mail, maybe 100,000 pieces of mail over that span of time, right? So it's a lot of mail, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort, but it's 2,200 leads, right? Well, last year of our 100, and let's just round up 140 list side, 150 list side taken, right, not sold, roughly a third of them came to our seller workshop. Right. Yeah. So you look at our average price point, you say, okay, so let's say $60 to $70 million worth of production came from direct mail to a home selling workshop in some way, shape, or form. Right. I mean, some of those numbers we're using rough math here, but the ROI is absolutely incredible. So I'm a huge proponent of direct mail. It works in our business, and I think it works in a lot of other people's businesses across the country.
Me too. And I think that, and we'll move on to the next thing, but just to tie that up with a bow, what's interesting is some people listening heard that as, it's the seller workshops. True. That's very true. What I want to share with everybody is the thing with direct mail is the message matters. Scott started saying that way, right? And if there's the right audience and there's a compelling message, then direct mail works. And I think that it's interesting, Scott answered my question on direct mail with the seller workshop, because to him, all that is a way the direct mail and the message got them in front of them. All a seller workshop is, guys, is a group listing presentation, right? To more than one person. So it's interesting that you answered the direct mail question with the seller workshop. I think that's huge, actually. All right. So let's move on to open houses. Open houses, we have one weekend for the most part, for most of our markets, we have one weekend. What are you guys doing? Are you doing anything before, during, after? Are you doing anything different? Just talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we do Saturday and Sunday open houses traditionally in my market. I am a market, we're a bedroom community of New York City. Most of my buyers are coming from New York City, Hoboken, Jersey City. They're roughly 45 minutes to an hour away. I know other markets across the country, they get great attendance at Twilight open houses, stuff like that. I haven't. One tweak that we did make is in my marketplace, Thursday from 11 to 1 is what we call brokers opens. And I thought to myself, well, it's silly that we're just having it open to the brokers, because brokers with buyers always call us and say, oh, can I bring a buyer? So we just started posting them as open houses to the public. We
started doing that too. Yeah.
Right. And honestly, people have showed up. They're like, oh, I can never make it on the weekend. I have 3 kids. It just never works out. But I was on my lunch break and I saw it was open. Is it okay? You're like, yeah, that's great. So we turn these things that were almost like we were obligated to do for the marketplace into a lead gen source for us for buyers. So that's been one little tweak. The other thing that we've been really successful with is door knocking. So Kenny, Klaus, and Scott talked about this a long time ago at Family Reunion, and they're good friends of ours, and we've masterminded with them on the topic. So we thought, we want to get our agents door knocking, but our agents were so reluctant. My agent population just felt like it was awkward. They didn't know what to say, or the message wasn't great. And so Scott and Kenny had this amazing program, which was, well, what if we used every open house as an opportunity to give back to the community? I'm like, well, that's really interesting. And they said, well, so what they would do, and what we now do, is we have these brown paper bags. We bought them in bulk off Uline, right? And so you get these big brown paper bags, and you give, say, 50 to every agent for every open house. We made a flyer for the front of it. So the flyer invites them to the open house and gives them a form to fill out. Now, the form They have to fill out their name, their phone number, their email, and their address, and they have to put canned goods as a donation to a local community food bank, right? And so the script is really simple. It writes itself. It's like, hey, Via, so nice to meet you. I'm not sure if you know or not, but we're selling the Smith's house down the road. Did you see that? You say, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. Great. Well, hey, Via, I'm not sure if you're familiar with our team or not, but one of our core values is giving back to the community, right? Doing good where we live. And so what we've committed to do this year is to use every open house as an opportunity to collect canned goods or donations to the local community food banks, right? And so we're door knocking with this bag to not only invite you to the open house, but also as a way to collect canned goods for the local community food bank. So everyone's like, oh, that's awesome. Thanks. Like, that's great. What a great idea. I say, right. And as a thank you to all our neighbors, if you fill out the form on the front, it enters you into a monthly drawing for a dinner for two at Restaurant Serenade, which no one on this call knows, but it's a nice,
right.
$300 meal for two people with wine, right? So it's a nice gift card, right? So here's what's really interesting. So now here comes open house day, right? And all of a sudden, all these people are walking down your front steps, right, with their bags. Now, what do you know?
They're a neighbor.
They're a neighbor. Easy. Number two is they now feel invited to come to the open house versus awkward about coming to the open house because, of course, a lot of neighbors come in and they're like, well, I'm just a neighbor. And you're like, why are you so weird, right? It's like, this is normal. But neighbors think it's weird. So we normalize it. We make them feel invited versus not invited, right? And they literally give you a bag with all their contact information on it because they want to win the raffle, right? Well,
okay, literally, I have to go. I got to go implement this right now. Bye. See you later. Because that is so good. I'm totally doing this.
Right. So only one person's going to win the raffle a month, right? But they don't know how many bags are coming back. So now all these people are coming in with their bags. I know you're a neighbor. I can start a conversation. They know my face because I door knocked your door on probably Thursday. That's when we do it because it gives them enough time to actually collect canned goods and come, right? And they've literally handed me a sheet of paper with their contact information on it, which now becomes a seller database ad, right? Amazing. So I just collected another seller database ad for my database.
That is, I love that so much. I want to marry it. Like, it's so good. I can't even right now. I want to leave this call to go implement. No, I don't. I really don't want to leave this call. Well, that's huge. Are you doing anything at the open houses themselves? This any different from the normal stuff?
Yeah, so all my agents know this. I
have the same philosophy on open houses.
I do not allow any technology to sign people in. I think that is the absolute death.
Okay, do not watch. Okay, so here's the thing. That's not where I thought you were going with that because I am a big proponent of that. However, what I will say to everybody who just watched me with Bob Stewart, how to automate this. Hold up, everybody. Hold up. Both can be true. You can do the manual stuff and not have tech, but you can still have your tech do the follow-up. So don't blow one or the both off. They both can work. Okay.
I'll show you. I'll talk to you about how we do it. So here's my thing. In my marketplace, we have been using Open House Pro and all these other applications or spreadsheets or whatever people had created. And unfortunately, what we were getting was Bob Smith would sign up 800 times and you'd get 1-800, 000. Right? You've got no information, right? And so what we learned was, and what we found to be true was, if I stand there and Via comes in, I say, hey, Via, so nice to meet you. Well, I don't know you yet. I say, hey, I'm Scott Shuman. I'm usually going to get a first and last name back, right? If I introduce myself first and last name, I usually get a first and last name back, right? And I can ask a simple question of where are you guys coming from today? And they always say, we live in Hoboken now. We're thinking about moving out to Chatham. And I'll say, wow, that's great. And what I always do is I never ask for their information right there. I liken it to when you go to Nordstrom's, right? And that person walks right up to you the second you walk in. You're like, whoa, I just came in, right? But what happens 5 minutes later when you're looking for your jeans in the right size, you're like, where did that person go?
Where'd they go?
Right? So I'm going to invite you in. I'm going to make you feel really comfortable. And my whole goal, I talk to the team about this all the time. What can we do that separates ourselves from everybody else in our marketplace, right? So traditional agents, I find, are one of two things. They're either way too aggressive and they pounce on you and they're trying to get your social security number within 3 seconds of meeting you, right? Or they're sitting at the kitchen table and they're like, hi, welcome, sign in when you get a chance, and let me know if you have any questions. Neither of those are good options, right? So I like to say, listen, come on in. I want to meet you real quick. And every house has a flow, right? So I'm going to send them on their way. And typically it meets back at a ponding point, which is usually the kitchen, right? The kitchen, heart of the home, the whole deal, right? So we get back to the kitchen. I'm going to say, hey, Via, it was, what did you think about the living room? Did you see the wood burning fireplace? Oh yeah, it's really great. Awesome. Well, hey, while I have you here, let me get you signed in. So it's Via and John from Hoboken, right? And Via, what's the best cell number for you?
555-1212.
Right. So I'm really confirming some information. Now, I'll say, Via, what's the best email for you? You're going to tell me. I'll say, all right, great. I'll say, hey, Via, while I have you, I'm going to text you a copy of the seller's disclosure and all the marketing material on this home so you have it when you get home. Is the 551 number you gave me, is that the best number to text you on?
Oh, let me give you my real number.
Right, because you're standing in front of me. I have you audience, right? And this is nothing but an adaptation of 7 Levels of Communication, right? An absolutely brilliant book. I have you one-on-one. We have the highest level of connection in that moment. You quite literally, I mean, I guess you could, but you're not just going to about face and walk out the front door, right? We are in a conversation. There's a connection here, right? So while I have that, I want to get as much information out of you as possible, and I want to verify it, because if I have verified information, now my follow-up, right, becomes that much stronger. So we're going to wrap up our open house, and we use a system called Jot Form. So when you're done, all the information that you collect from the open house goes right into our Jot Form, and then our Jot Form is connected to our admin so they know who came, right? So they can provide the seller with feedback, and it imports all those people into Boomtown, which is the system we use, or Brivity or whoever else you're using out there, and it connects all those people into your database so that way instant follow-up can happen, right?
Just out of curiosity, why use Jotform and not go straight into Boomtown or Brivity?
Because we like to create a report. So we like to create an open house report afterwards that our admin can see who's represented who came, who's unrepresented who came, and it's a nice just snapshot right there for them versus just a bunch of, the think about it, the whatever CRM you're using, it doesn't really matter. None of them are designed to really create a report that you could just download with all the feedback in one spot, right? So
and then does Jotform feed into Boomtown?
Right, correct, yep.
Okay, so you're getting both. So you're only doing a single entry. Oh, I like it. I like it. Can I push back or not even push back? Because I think it's all great. What happens when you have 40 or 50 groups through and you're, it's hard to maintain rapport and do what you're talking about when you have like 5 simultaneous families that are in various parts of the house and they're walking by you and.
So I would say 2 things about that. One is we're fortunate enough that we're a big team. So for our busy open houses, we always have 2 agents for that same reason, right? One can be with one can be with the other. The other thing is COVID gave us this gift, which is people don't mind waiting, right? So we can throttle traffic, right, into our open houses. So I'm not taking in 10 people at a time. I'm not in a conversation having 8 people walk in the front door and start running. It became more normal to say, hey, you're going to ring the bell and I'm so sorry, give me 5 minutes, let this group come out, right? It let us kind of control our own pace. And at the end of the day, we train all our agents and our owners that while the open house might be from say 1 to 4, you might need 1 to 5 because there might be a line around the corner. There might be somebody who loves it so much they're there for an hour. So we're always building that flex time in to make sure that everybody gets what they need and no one feels rushed out the door at the end of the open house.
Well, you're so right. And the philosophy I was referring to earlier, I think both you and I are aligned, is that agents walk into most open houses and they don't have a good enough outcome in mind. So they walk in and their goal is, I'm just going to bond with people and see what happens. And I think what I meant by philosophy is that, you and I are both, no, you're walking in there, you're getting their information, you want leads. Now, I would further this, and anyone who's seen any of my open house training knows how I feel about this. We want to try to close for appointments. And if you can set an appointment there, that is the golden lead. So my rule of thumb was, if I could, setting 1+ appointment per open house, right? That's all I needed. 1+ appointment set. Now I got contact info from a lot more people but if I could set an appointment and ideally that appointment was super close to the open house, winning, I crushed it.
Yep. Well, and what we know in our area, this works really well too. We talk a little bit more about open houses here is we have people who have come out for the day, right? Because they live an hour away, they're coming out I call it speed dating, right? They're coming, they're seeing 5, 6,
You're
7.
right. It is speed dating. Yeah.
And so what I talk to the agents about is listen, if you meet somebody, one of the questions I always ask is, well, what, actually, you taught me this, Via. I went to a class you taught at Family Reunion once, and you shared a story about an agent who had just joined your team, and you needed her to do an open house. And she was like, what do I do? And you're like, if you do nothing else, everyone who leaves, just ask them if they want to write an offer on the house, right?
That's it. That's what you do.
Like, okay, right. And I remember you said she called you afterwards and she was freaking out. And you're like, well, what? She goes, well, there's 2 people who want to write offers on this house. And you're like, well, that's a great problem to have, right? And so I whenever agents come in and we talk about open houses, I always share that story because I think that's like such a brilliant story of like, it's not complicated. We overcomplicate this process. And so when people say, well, no, this isn't the right house for us, I always ask that question, which is, well, what about this house didn't meet your needs and what are you looking for, right? Yeah. This is where depth of inventory knowledge comes into play. So what ends up happening is they start talking about a house, and most likely there's a house that would fit for them, right? Yeah. So what I'll usually do, and this is a great way to verify contact information again, is they'll say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, that's really awesome. Have you guys ever heard about this house, 123 Main Street, right? We're at 125, 123. They're like, oh yeah, we saw it online, but it's not open. You're like, yeah, those owners don't want to do open houses, right? They're only showing it by appointment only. But the good news is I know that broker really well. I think I can get you in here, into that house after my open house. Are you guys in the area? Perfect. You guys in the area until about 4 o'clock? Of course they are. They're coming to open houses, right? So they're like, oh yeah, we're in the area. I'm like, great, awesome. So why don't we do this? Why don't we anticipate we'll meet there around 4:15, 4:30? And what I'm going to do is I have this number, the 551 number. I'll text you to confirm, or if for some reason the owners can't accommodate it, I'll text you back so we can set up a different time later on this week to get together, right? And they're like, yeah, sure, great. Oh yeah, that's the right number, great. So like, I'm not even giving them the chance to go home and lose me. I already have an appointment with you set up to go. The other thing that we can do while we're there is I obviously know what else is open, right? So I'll say, well, what other open houses are you going to today? And they'll say, well, I'm going to, blah, 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 blah. Or I don't really know. And I'll say, well, you should go check out this house because I know this house didn't have the primary bathroom you wanted. That house has a beautiful primary suite. You should definitely go check that one out. Oh, great. Hey, I'm going to let the agent know to expect you when you go there. Now, what am I doing, right? I'm preemptively assigning you as my client, right? I'm taking another speed dater out of the pool. So that agent knows that Scott's sending Via to 127 Main Street to go look at the master suite. Just gives me the leg up.
Okay, this is perfect. And the thing about it is anyone listening right now who's thinking, I never want to send a client to an open house. Here's my comment. My comment is they're going anyway. What Scott's doing is he's just implying agency. Like it's really, really smart. Oh, Scott, so smart.
Yeah.
And setting that appointment up right afterwards, that's what I always teach. The delta between, them leaving your eyeballs and the appointment itself, the shorter that is, the higher likelihood this is going to happen. You start setting an appointment for even the next day, let alone the next week or the next weekend, it just diminishes the percentage of odds that they're going to make that appointment. It diminishes greatly. So, my little funny script that I use all the time and I train on, that's just a mechanism to do what you said, right?
Yeah. And it all comes back to what I said earlier, which is what can we do that 90% of the other agents aren't doing, right? And so if we can show ourselves as being proactive, right? I mean, think about, we started this conversation about low inventory and low lead count, right? So if I can show myself as this appropriately aggressive agent, right? Who's aggressive on your behalf, not aggressive at selling you a house. I'm just aggressive at helping you get into homes and getting you into inventory and educating you, right? Well, why would you not want to work with me? Everybody else just was like, oh, give me your card. I'll set you up, no, I want to be proactive here. I want to get you to be my client today.
That's right.
That way by Wednesday, we're talking about what houses do we want to see on Saturday, right?
That's right. It's so smart. So smart. I love all of this. So we've talked about, mailers and what you guys are doing for mailers. We've talked about open houses and, and the door knocking that you guys do with that. What about digital marketing? Are you guys doing anything to leverage your listings that way?
Yeah, I mean, we're really just spending some money in online social media advertising, right? We're boosting everything. For a lot of our luxury properties, we're making videos for them, and those are really doing well. Those are getting a lot of engagement, a lot of clicks back. We're using, we with Keller Williams have access to Command, but certainly all of you out there have access to those sort of portals where you can upload a listing and that they're able to find the audience. I mean, they work. They really do work. You're talking about low amounts of money, and you're talking about lead flow coming in, and it's like any other internet lead, right? I mean, is every single one going to be a $3 million buyer ready to go? Absolutely not. Some of them are going to be total duds, right? And yet, if it costs you $50 to get 100 of them, and 2 of them end up being viable leads, like the return is incredible on that, right? So we're doing some of that. We have 2 websites. We run kind of a double website model. So we have a website called sueather.com. That's a custom WordPress website. So we control every piece of content on that site, and there's no forced registration whatsoever. You can look at everything. You can interact. You can do whatever. And then we have latestnjlistings.com, which is part of our Boomtown partnership, and that's more traditional real estate, forced registration, a couple photos, that deal. So what we'll do on sueather.com is we'll leave listings under the active status longer than they are in the MLS, again, in hopes that we get some traffic off of it, right? So there's these little kind of like ticky-tacky tips and tricks that we use that, is it making these monumental shifts? No. And yet, to me, if I get 1 or 2 organic leads, right, because I'm not asking them to register on sueather.com. That's somebody raising their hand and saying, I see this listing, I want to know more about it. Well, 125 Main Street might be sold now, and I probably have some other listings I can show you or talk to you about, right? So that's been really powerful for us as well in terms of online internet generation. And we didn't talk about this, Via, but I do this thing called Sneak Peek Tuesday. So Sneak Peek Tuesday, we have a database, we have an email database. It's got something like 24,000 people in it now. We've amassed it over the years, but the size doesn't matter, right? What do we know about the real estate market right now is people want inventory, right? The secret, the bait at the end of the line is inventory, it's homes. Buyers are freaking out over houses, right? And they're working with you, but they're calling every other broker trying to find out who has an exclusive, who has this, who has that. They're looking for inventory. So on Tuesdays, we do our Sneak Peek Tuesday. So we send out 1 photo, bed, bath count, and town in a nice little email spread, right? Of our upcoming listings that week. I cannot tell you the amount of people that call us off of it, right? Because we give them just enough to get them excited, but not enough to make them either disqualify it because it's too expensive or not the right street or whatever. And people just come to us and they say, oh, what's that house you're listing in Chatham? That looks really great. You're like, oh, it's so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And, it's going to be listed for $1 million. And they're like, oh, well, we can't spend $1 million. No problem. We have others. What price range are you looking in? Oh, we're really up to $750,000. Oh, great. Well, 2 weeks from now, I have this house coming on. Let me keep you posted. And have you seen this house? That it just writes itself to be able to convert these buyers that way. So Sneak Peek Tuesday, again, sort of repackaging our inventory and just getting it out there a little bit early to the masses has really done us very well.
I'm so jealous of markets that are allowed to do coming soon listings. We can't even do that. We're in I'm just in such a rare, weird market here but I love that so much. What is your call to action? What is your goal in your boosted Facebook and Instagram ads? Is it for web clicks? Is it registration? Is it direct communication to call you? Is it home valuation? What are you typically driving them to?
We play with all of them. I think Facebook and ad roll and all that stuff, AdWords, the audience gets burned so quickly because they're getting so much of this content, right? I mean, Via, you probably remember this 5 years ago when you ran a home val ad, right? A nice Brivity home val ad. I mean, the website would shut down. You got so many people who would click through, right? I mean, you get for $200, you get 500 people who want to know the value of their home, right? And then everybody did it, and now the masses say, oh, no, this isn't giving me a home valuation. This is connecting me to a realtor, right? So we kind of ruined our own party there. And yet I'm a big proponent of changing the target, right? So for one house, it could be I just want people to visit the website, right? Some of our luxury websites, I know that those people are less likely to be forced registered. I just want to send them to get information because, quite frankly, if you want to buy a $4 million house and you already have a broker, I just want you to be interested in it and go and see it because it's a big win for all of us if we make that happen, right? For some of the more entry-level price points, I know that market, there's just more buyers and they're more apt to register. So I'm gonna send them to a place where they need to register to get information. Facebook forums, the organic built-in Facebook forums, those do a really good job at converting as well. and getting leads in. And I think, there's lots of different, it's just trial and error. I think it's A/B testing and, trying this and trying that. And that's the cool thing. It's so inexpensive. $20, you can reach 2,000 people, right? So $20 here, oh, that didn't work. $20 here, oh, that worked. Okay, let's put $100 behind that. Does that work even more? I think you have to have this kind of mindset of, well, I'm never going to find and by the way the algorithms all change. The second that you think you found the one thing that works, it doesn't work anymore. You got to go find the next thing. So it's all about just working within the algorithm and playing around with it. You'll get leads but here's the thing. I think it's all still about education. It's all about education. Like we on our Instagram, we do these town tour series. So we have save stories, and it's all information about our local town. So you can go to the chat of one, and it talks to you about the schools. It talks to you about the communities. It talks to you about the playgrounds, the golf courses, the restaurants. It talks to you about all of it. We get more traffic off of that socially and leads off of that than we do off of actual listings, because people are there and they still need information, right? I call it the ungoogleable, right? I'm always searching after, well, what can we provide that you can't just go to Google and type in, Summit, New Jersey real estate and find. And there's a lot of that local knowledge that we all know. We're all local brokers. We all can share that. I think it's finding creative ways to share that information that really ultimately is going to convert leads and get people to say, okay, you're different and I need your knowledge, or else I'm missing something out when I'm buying a house.
Yeah, one follow-up question, then we'll move on to calls, and that is, do you retarget or remarket your own database in any way so that you're kind of reinforcing, within your own database?
Yeah. We use a company called AdRoll, which is pretty user-friendly and easy to use. And not only do we retarget the whole database, but we also retarget visitors to specific listings, right? So we talked about how we're leaving our listings live longer. So we have a social and a social campaign as well as an AdWords campaign for those listings. So sort of like if you ever shop for a pair of shoes on Macy's, and then all of a sudden 3 days later, it's like, hey, did you remember that you like these shoes? Same thing with the home, right? It's, hey, take another look. Did you forget about this house? It's open Sunday, right? We can just get in front of the eyes again and get a second look.
Yeah, perfect. Because I think that sometimes using social in that way simply reinforces us to our own database, and which is an ROI, right? For such a low cost. So, and it's also generating new leads, but I just didn't want to forget that. And one more thing
about social while we're on the topic. I think social media gives you such an opportunity to reach people in your community, right? And if you're looking for sellers, most of them are on Facebook, right? And I know there's a lot of people out there who use Messenger at a very high level, and you can get listing. It's funny, actually. Just last night, there's a house in my neighborhood that's been under construction for like 2 years. This person bought it right as COVID was coming, and it's literally been halfway between not constructed and constructed in over the course of 2 years. It's sort of a weird situation, and I walk by it every day with my dog. And finally, last night, I was like, I'm going to find this person, and I just want to know the story. So I found her name on tax records. I put it in. Sure enough, first hit on Facebook, and I'm like, what do I have to lose? I'll send her a message on Facebook. So I said, hey, I'm a local real estate broker. I see your house. It looks like you're doing an amazing renovation to it. Just curious, are you doing it for yourself, or are you thinking about selling it? What's really interesting was her first response was absolutely not. And then her next response was, I find it obnoxious you're reaching out to me on Facebook. And I thought, well, I have two options here. I can either just not respond, or I can sort of play this out. So I said, all right, let me message her back. So I messaged her back, and I said, I'm really sorry. I never meant to offend you. I just have so many buyers looking in this neighborhood. I don't know if you know, but I live around the corner from you. And I always have people that are asking about your house. And if I could get you top dollar, I would have loved to help. Total 180. Responds back, well, that's really kind of you. Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm sorry I was so short. I get so many messages about my house. You were just one of 1,000 that have reached out to me. And I said, I totally get it because you're doing such a nice renovation. Well, her next message was, well, while I have you, what do you think the value of my home is? I said, I'd have to see your home in order to give you a real value. Do you have plans, or can I come on over and see it? She goes, I'm always at the house on Friday afternoons. The next time you're in the neighborhood, just knock on the door and come on in. I'll show you around. I said, great.
That's an appointment. I'm there Friday afternoon.
Off of somebody who was like, ready to push me off a bridge, right? And I'm like, so it just struck me like we're so, and when I was writing the message, I was so nervous about the response, right? And yet I kind of go back to like that Fierce Conversations book. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It's like, just put it out there. What's the worst that happens? She says, you're obnoxious. And I say, okay. And we all go our own way and like, whatever. Or she doesn't respond. And yet, like, look, I reached out and it started a conversation. Who knows if she'll ever sell her house or not. And yet I'm going to build this contact. I have her contact information, and, there's a probability that she may sell it for the right number, which is great.
You know what, Scott? It's actually the perfect place to wrap. And here's why. Because I think that part of why I feel so strongly about my LFL program, my Leads from Listings program, and really trying hard to get 2-to-1, right? Get 2 pieces of business for every listing, is that people who are typically maybe, scared of lead generating or have a low self-confidence in doing it, when you have an excuse, it builds confidence. And when you have a topic and a subject to call someone about and talk to someone about, adding that in, like, hey, I walk my dog by your house every day and I live around the corner, is just enough. And so I think that's a perfect place to end. Is the reason I feel so strongly is that we're leveraging social proof, which is, hey, someone trusted me to list their asset. You can too, right? And then they're seeing results, right? And you're just halfway there. You're halfway there. As hard as it is to get in front of people, if you can use that moment where you're successful to get in front of people, you will get 2 pieces of business for every listing, or you'll certainly do better than you're doing now if you're more purposeful about it. So Scott Shuman from the Sue Adler team, we thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I literally learned so much. I'm going to go back and re-listen and take notes on this, and I'm implementing that great open house tip. I love it. So we'll see you guys next week. It's all about home valuation leads next week. Speaking of which, that was good timing. And every week for the next few months, guys, we are drilling down on all of these points on how to do this. So stick with me. I think we all need this year. Have a great week, everybody. And thank you, Scott.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Via.